The new MG3 is the cheapest full hybrid that you can buy. But just because something is cheap doesn't mean it's good. The old MG3, for example, was very cheap, but it was also pretty poor. That was a very old, very different car though, and these days MG has got a pretty good track record when it comes to making cheap, good cars. The MG4, MG5, MGHS all undercut their direct rivals by quite a lot, and so, because of their price, they're quite compelling options. Does this new MG3 follow that trend? Well, inside, you don't immediately assume that this is one of the cheapest new cars on sale. In fact, things are actually fairly decent on the face of it. You get a 7-inch driver display, you get a 10.25-inch touchscreen infotainment system, and the infotainment system itself is reasonably responsive. It can weirdly take a bit of time to load up a menu, but then once that's actually sorted, then the interactions within it are fairly quick and snappy. And the icons are a bit small, and of course, it's a shame that you've got the main controls for the climate on the touchscreen. But what is good is you've still got some helpful shortcut buttons, as you can see here below. Now, you get this infotainment setup and this driver display whether you go for the cheapest version of the MG3 or the most expensive one, and the layout in here is the same on both cars as well. And it is all suitably modern, pretty clean, swish, looks similar to an MG4 in that respect. But on closer inspection, you can see that actually quite a lot of the materials are just hard, cheap feeling plastic. There's not much in the way of luxury in here, but still, it does look fairly decent and it's got a good layout. In terms of practicality, it's fine in that department as well. You've got this helpful armrest here and a nice padded bit on this armrest on the door, even though the rest of it is hard plastics. Underneath this, you've got this kind of phone holder tray type thing, which you can also slide forwards, which neatens up this cubby hole here. But it does feel a bit kind of loose and flimsy. You can, if you really don't like it, take it out completely though. Underneath it, there's more storage. You've got this separated storage thing, which you can also take out here and put somewhere else. There's 2 cup holders, another storage tray at the front here. And generally, in this interior, it's the cheapest full hybrid that you can buy, but you shouldn't feel shortchanged by the interior that you get in return. Things are fairly good in the rear seats as well. So the driver's seat is set up for my driving position, and legroom is fairly decent. There is not much room for your feet under the seat in front of you though, because there is something there preventing your feet from going as far forwards as you think they might be able to. So that's a shame. And headroom is okay for the small car class. I can just about sit up straight without contact with the roof lining, but if I want to put my head back on the headrest, I can't, because then I am actually touching the roof. If you want to sit in this middle seat, it is a shame that the seat base is raised up quite as much as it is, because it means not only is it quite a firm and uncomfortable seat base itself, but you're also higher up and that reduces headroom even more. But it is good that while there is a lump in the floor, it's not actually that big, so you don't have to have your feet in an awkward position either side of it. So overall, by small car standards, this is respectable in the rear seats. Now, the boot is not particularly impressive in the MG3. In total, you've got 298 litres of storage back here. We managed to fit 3 carry-on size suitcases into the back pretty comfortably. 4 though wouldn't fit with the boot closing below the parcel shelf. So compared to a Renault Clio, that's got a much bigger boot than this, but the point to make is that if you go for a hybrid Renault Clio, then the boot space is significantly smaller than the pure petrol version of that car. And in that instance, this MG3 versus a hybrid Renault Clio are actually fairly similar in terms of the overall capacity that they both offer. But with the MG3, you've got this big loading lip at the front here. You don't have anything fancy like a height adjustable boot floor. You've got some slightly unconventional underfloor storage, I suppose. And if you do want even more space than what's on offer here, then of course what you can do is remove the parcel shelf, although there isn't anywhere in the car to actually store it. So you've got to just ditch it somewhere else instead, and you can lower the rear seats. Now, in a Renault Clio, if you want to fold down the rear seats, you can do so in 2 chunks. In the MG3, there's no such luxury here. If you want these rear seats down, then you have to fold the entire slab of seat down. And another annoying thing is that you have to unlock both sides of the seat as well, and then fold down this massive slab of seat like that. And when they're down, you can see they don't lie flat with the boot floor, so you've got this step up to them. And it just means that you can't have anyone sat in the back if you need some extra space in your boot. In a Renault Clio, you could have one extra passenger sat in the back and the other half of the seats folded down to give you as much boot space as possible. But no such luxury in the MG3. So even in the small car class, this boot is not particularly impressive. In the future, you'll be able to buy an MG3 with a pure petrol setup and a manual gearbox, which will be even cheaper than this car. But if you want an MG3 right now, then you'll get the Hybrid Plus. That comes with a 101 brake horsepower, 4-cylinder, 1.5 litre petrol engine, as well as a 107 brake horsepower electric motor. And you also get a 1.83 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. All of which means that this can apparently travel on pure electric power alone for short bursts at speeds of up to 50 miles an hour. Now, this MG3 with that hybrid setup is actually surprisingly quick on the road. Off the line, the acceleration is really impressive, and it will do 0 to 62 miles an hour in 8 seconds, which is loads quicker than a Renault Clio hybrid. It's about a second quicker than that car. But the power delivery is slightly odd, because when you want that first burst of acceleration, then it delivers it, but then it dies away quite quickly after that. And when you're at higher speeds on the motorway, the performance doesn't feel quite as flexible and powerful as it does at lower speeds. But still, with a hybrid, outright acceleration probably isn't that important to buyers of those types of cars. They probably want something that's smooth, that's calm and quiet, especially around town. And the MG3 is okay in that department. It can feel a bit kind of juddery in its power delivery at those low speeds if you're constantly in stop-start traffic. A Renault Clio is smoother in the way that its hybrid powertrain operates at those low speeds. The Clio is also a lot quieter on the move as well. There's quite a bit of road and wind noise in this car, especially at motorway speeds. In terms of the ride, the MG3 is fine. This is not an uncomfortable car. It's not like it's very firm, but it's also not like it's very loose and there's lots of movement in it, but it's not as polished or sophisticated feeling as a Renault Clio. Ultimately in the MG3, you are moved around quite a bit more, and the impacts that the suspension feels are more pronounced in this car. Now, the MG3 gets a 3-speed automatic gearbox, which is rather unusual. You'd normally expect a 7-speed, maybe 8-speed automatic gearbox, or with a full hybrid, a CVT, continuously variable transmission. But in effect, this 3-speed automatic gearbox works and feels similar to a CVT. So if you do want a quick burst of acceleration and the revs go soaring and you hear the engine screaming away until you reach your desired speed, and then things quieten down and relax, just like a CVT. But that engine noise is another thing that can make the MG3 a bit loud on the inside. That's something that all other hybrids suffer from as well, though. Now, in terms of handling, there aren't any unpleasant surprises with the MG3, really. This is a very easy, predictable car to drive. It has very light steering, so it couldn't be simpler to thread this through congested roads around town. A Clio, though, does just have slightly tighter body control, slightly meatier steering that gives you a bit more confidence in this car. And also, something I forgot to point out earlier is the fact that the steering wheel in this MG3 only adjusts for height and not reach, which is pretty bad. It works for my driving position, but it might not work for everyone. And if you're wondering about fuel economy, the official combined figure for this car is 64.2 miles per gallon, which is very impressive. We have been experiencing more between 40 and 50 miles per gallon, but what we're going to do is put this car through a proper real-world test in a future video. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe. The MG3 is available in 2 trims. There's entry-level SE and this range-topping trophy model. With this car, the cheaper you make it, the more compelling the package is overall. Having said that, you might want to consider the step up to trophy, because for £2,000 you get things like heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, LED headlights and a 360-degree camera. Whichever version you go for, you get a brilliant 7-year warranty as standard. Now, the old MG3 was a very cheap car. When it first went on sale back in 2013, the starting price was just £8,500. It did have some big price hikes over the years, but even when it went off sale, the starting price was around £14,000. This new MG3 has had a significant jump in price compared to that old MG3. But this does feel like a significantly better product all round. And even if you go for the most expensive version of this car, it still undercuts the entry-level price of a hybrid Renault Clio, which is £21,500, and the Toyota Yaris, which is £22,500. Ultimately, a Clio does feel more polished than this MG3. But if you want a new hybrid car and you're on a tight budget, then this MG3 is definitely worth considering. Thank you for watching this review. If you want to see us put the new MG3 against the new Suzuki Swift, then make sure you're subscribed to our channel, because very soon we're going to do an in-depth comparison of those two cars. But for now, if you want to see another video like this, then click up there. And to get a great deal on your next car and to find out more about the MG3, click on that link to go to whatcar.com.